Hey guys, how's it going? Comparing here. So yesterday we got to try out the Descent races. It was the first time one of these events was held, and it's been hyped up for about a week or so. So it's pretty exciting to try it for the first time. If you're not familiar with this type of race format that's been introduced in Season 3, the way it works is you start off with a character in the middle of a new zone, and you have like a few items that you start with, and at the end of each zone there's like a boss which you can kill if you want, and it's typically guarding two chests, and there's like an alluring chest and a curious chest, and each chest has a predefined drop list for each individual class. So it's more or less competitive, and the RNG is marginalized as a result, especially when you compare classes of each other. And it was pretty fun. It's a really new experience in Path of Exile, that's for sure. So that's always welcome in my book. But I want to share with you guys some of the experiences that I had. Play some footage in the background so you can see, generally what it's like, and give you guys some of my opinions about what's going on. So overall, it was pretty fun. Just experiencing the whole thing was pretty cool because typically in the traditional race format, I've done it so many times that there's no new thing, and the most frustrating thing when you're doing a normal race is every now and then you just get absolutely nothing. No currency, no drops, just bone dry loot. Nothing in terms of RNG. And those races are really not fun because you're competing with people in, an unfair kind of way. And, it's not anything you can do. And with this one, just because you can get some extra drops, it's really cool. And it kind of keeps it interesting. So you're not really going to be disappointed when you're doing one of these. Except, of course, the first few times where you're doing it, where you don't actually know what the predefined drops from the chests are, and you get screwed like I did. See, I wanted to make a Templar. I assumed that because you get sweep multiple times on a Templar, that I would at least get it once, by chance, hopefully, if not maybe like a ground slam. So I wanted to go a melee build. So I want a melee build, and because I start with Glacial Hammer, and I start with Ice Nova, that's pretty much all I got to use, because I didn't pick the correct chest, because I didn't know which one it was. So I was using a like level 3 Ice Nova because I didn't have the int to level it any further, up until like level 15 or something, where the race ended for me. So it wasn't really the most pleasant experience, and if you participate in the event, you saw that something like 19 out of the top 20, or just some absurd number, were duelists. And that's because duelists start with cleave, and some classes get really screwed. And that's really where the not so cool stuff happens in the race type. So it's some classes just get really good gems and others don't. And it's not a normal race where you can mule gems to your main character. So if I want to use cleave on a Templar in a regular race, all I have to do is spend 3 or 4 minutes making a duelist, and I get to see the vendors again, and I get the Scroll of Wisdom. So there's it kind of balances out. But in this race, you're kind of running a strict regimen of builds, and I can give you guys an example of how imbalanced this is. So this is the chart that some people participated in making, where it shows some of the rewards, especially early on in these levels. I don't know how many levels there are, but there are a lot, and I know that the skill gems are predominantly in the beginning. So I want to compare Templar melee to Marauder melee. Now obviously Marauder is a pure melee class, but Templar, if you choose, is also a pure melee class as well. So I felt the options should be at least somewhat even, but no, not really. So let's see. Marauders start with Heavy Strike and Ground Slam. Templars start with Ice Nova and Glacial Hammer. Glacial Hammer is, in my opinion, better than Heavy Strike, but it's it's on the same level. Then you have Ice Nova and Ground Slam. Ice Nova is actually better than Ground Slam because it's much more effective at low levels. But I'm like, okay, that's great. I was really happy about that. The Templars actually have a great start. And then when you go to the first skill gem choice, Marauders can get Cleave or Sweep. So both Cleave and Sweep, in my opinion, are superior to Ground Slam in a race environment. And Templars get Firestorm or Ground Slam. And the reason this is depressing is because Ground Slam is garbage. Ground Slam is like a defensive ability, but when you're racing, you really just need to do damage. You need to hit as many monsters as possible, and Ground Slam does not satisfy that very well. And later on, Marauders get Leap Slam. Templars, well, I'm not so sure what they get there, but if you have to choose between 2 Alchemy Orbs and Sweep, then you're pretty screwed. The other thing is, although not listed on the spreadsheets, Templars get Weapon Elemental damage or added Lightning. And later on, you know, Marauders get added Fire. So if you're using, if a Templar, if you're even lucky enough to get like a Sweep gem, you have to use like Weapon Elemental on it, which is more mana than added Fire, and because you probably don't have any elemental damage, it's worse. So the gem selection is really, really lame, and it's a little depressing in that sense. But the reason this is, you know, in one way it's a bad thing, because, you know, you kind of want to be on the same level with everyone else. I mean, you don't want to see a list with 20 duelists, another 20 duelists, another 20 duelists, and then maybe like two Marauders or something. You know, you want to see a fairly diverse class, you know, list in the first page on the ladder during these events. But, you know, in the end, you're competing against your own class for points, so there's that. But ultimately, I've been told that these events on the final level, there's these like champion exiles like from Anarchy, and you know, if you defeat them, you get some super cool loot or some shit. That's why it's called Descent. You eventually descent into that level. And you know what? I want to play a Templar. I like playing Templar in races, but I want to get to that level too sometime. And judging by these gem selections, it seems that that may not be possible. So that's why it's pretty depressing. In the normal racing type, when it comes to shorter races, like pretty much any 1 hour race, the class distribution is fairly even. Yes, it's easier to play certain classes, but the absolute limits of all the classes is, you know, borderline the same, you know, between a level or 2 off. But what we've seen so far, that's not going to be the case in this race type. So if you, you know, if you really want to experience the later levels of the Descent stuff, you may have to learn to play a class that you haven't before, which, you know, is okay on one end because you learn stuff, but on the other, I feel Path of Exile is a game where you really should do whatever you want. So that's pretty much my only gripe about it. But overall, pretty cool experience. I'll definitely be doing all these events from now on, and you know, maybe we'll have some pretty entertaining moments then. So until then, I'll see you guys tomorrow.